Alrighty, so if you've been following me, I've recently done a massive endurance ride, 150 k's almost on the dot. It took me about 8 hours. I left at about 2:30 in the afternoon and got back at about 11 p.m. at night. And the bike worked fantastically until about within 5 k's from home, 3 to 5 k's, at which point everything failed. Now during the ride, it's been a bit of a constant bugbear, but I've been having issues with the clutch on that bike, and it finally decided to let go. Now I was still able to get the motor going by bump starting it, but then what had happened, and I'll show you this in a minute, is one of the wheel nuts on the rear wheel spat off. I don't even know precisely when it happened, which is really bad. But I'd lost the ability to pedal. Obviously the chain kept on slipping off. And I was going great until I got back near home and I started hitting the hills again, and the engine stalled out on one of the hills and never started again. All right. So this looks dramatic, but I just had to disconnect the drive motor chain so I could push the bike again. And you can see the alignment there is way off kilt, and there's a whole heap of rubber from where it was rubbing against the frame. Now, because the clutch had seized, pretty much, I couldn't roll the bike without disconnecting that chain. But also I couldn't pedal the bike either, because while we're now missing that wheel nut, it is vanished, it's gone, it's not coming back. So I'm gonna have to try and find a new nut to put on there before I can do anything else. I had to remove the chain guard because that was just really difficult to get off. I'll put the chain back on, sorry, because there's nothing holding this side of the wheel on. Every time you go to pedal, obviously it just pulls the wheel forward and the chain comes off. So there was no pedaling. So yeah, I had to walk the last few kilometers home. I'm going to open this case here and I'll just show you how far out the flower nut actually has come. And I can show you, no, I can't really at all. There's no resistance on the clutch lever whatsoever. Alrighty, now it is just starting to spit down with the rain, so we'll have a look in here quickly. I'll just loosen that last little one off. That is how far out the flower nut is, and there is no resistance in that whatsoever, and that's because the spring in the middle there is completely shot. But this motor is going to come off, and the plan is to try and fit that 4-stroke in there. For the most part, all I really have to do is remove the clutch lever. And yeah, the motor, CDI and little boost bottle there. Looking here, this is the issue that finally stopped me from getting home, is the carb, that pin had actually snapped clean off. So yeah, obviously without any way to get the fuel into the carb, the engine wasn't starting despite my best efforts. And I can tell you, I was riding on the motor for at least 20 k's with no nut on the rear wheel. I could feel it wobbling like that, but I figured I'll just keep on riding until I stop. Now I had been noticing fuel building up on the carb for quite a while, but it wasn't obvious. There wasn't any obvious sort of break in it. And so for a while, I'm pretty sure the fuel was just, it was getting enough fuel to keep going. obviously once I'd stopped, I must have bumped it and finally knocked it off. I think what had happened was I'd used a ring clamp like this, and there's actually not much space behind there, and I'm reasonably certain that the ring clamp was causing it to push out. A couple of 100 kilometers I think I've had this dual system on for, which I do intend to leave this system in place with the intended 4-stroke build. So what I do need to do now is drain the fuel out of the tank, both of them, and then set about removing the 2-stroke engine and all the mounting points. Now, I think the biggest irony in me buying a 4-stroke is that I'd mixed up 20 litres of 2-stroke. Maybe about a week before the second wave of coronavirus crippled Victoria, with the expectations that I'd be using it all pretty much on this bike. Now, this motor is still going strong, although I haven't ridden that in about 3 weeks either. So I've got to drain all this fuel out, which obviously I just used an extra bit of hose I had lying around. I do have a little bit of unmixed regular fuel in another jerry can, so if all goes well and I do get the 4-stroke mounted, I should be able to start it up fairly easily. But obviously I cannot use the same fuel between this motor and the 4-stroke for obvious reasons. So we'll just go ahead and let that bubble away. Now, I did open both tanks, even though I'm fairly sure the other one was empty. But what happens if, yeah, there's still a bit of fuel in there. The weight of the fuel from the bigger tank will flow backwards through the lines, and if you're not paying attention, will actually overflow the littler tank. Just a bit of fluid dynamics there, because you know, this system is imperfect, but it's worked fantastically for my purpose, and I really hope that I will be able to get it to work on the 4-stroke as well, because they're supposed to be a really, really economical motor to begin with. So I'll be interested to see how that works. Out. When I did the boost bottle mod, and I think this first mod, I did an economy test to test the difference between the boost bottle and standard in terms of how much better economy you got. I measured out 1.5 litres of fuel for both tests, and I got an extra 7 kilometers out of the same amount of fuel with the boost bottle on. Now that's a system that won't work in the 4-stroke because it's just not how they work. So I'm curious about whether or not I will get that kind of economy. That'll be a fairly simple test to perform as well, because I can just measure out the fuel in the small tank, and I will have to get out of the habit of putting oil in though. Alright, so I had originally tended just to reuse the kill switch and the throttle assembly, but it's looking pretty well munted. I mean, it has done a great many number of kilometers now, so I may as well just go ahead and replace it with a new one. And in any case, I'd have to unsnip all my cable ties around here anyway to put the new throttle cable in, so I may as well just use the new parts that I've got and save a bit of time later. So obviously the clutch has been removed, the clutch cable. I'm not going to try to fix the rear wheel until after I've gotten the whole engine off. The tanks are now empty, so I don't have to worry about that. I've just realised that my throttle cable actually runs right up underneath where I've got the gas tank cable tied on. Now when I built this bike, I said these cable ties were a temporary solution. That has lasted well over 800 kilometres now, somewhere between 830 to 850. I'm a little bit annoyed that I have to chop it out now, but this is why I did drain the tanks, because I suspected something like that might happen. I'll first see if I can just pull it through by undoing it from the carb, which is coming off anyway. But yeah, everything including the boost bottle has to come off, so I may as well just pull it all down and start again. Alright, so I've taken the accelerator cable out, which I was able to do without removing the fuel tank. I'll worry about that later. What I did notice is that this is spat clean out of the clutch housing, which makes me wonder if that bucking bar and ball is intact. Incidentally, I do have spares for that. When I was working on the bike at night, I felt like something had let go, and it would have been that being spat out. So tearing this down is a job for another day, but I just wanted to share that I found that quite interesting. Obviously that chain's currently stuck in there. I'll worry about that. I'll be able to get that off when I take all these covers off to have a look. But considering just taking this boost bottle and manifold off and trying to find some way to hang it up in there, but I don't really like my chances of that, because there's not much room up there to begin with, but I'll see what I can do. Alrighty, so we are running out of daylight here, but the engine is off. Now, when I built this, I was under the impression that putting rubber mounts either side of the engine was a good idea. Don't do it. In retrospect, it worked okay for me, but the engine was not as secure as it could have been. Now, clearly it didn't cause any major dramas for me, but I won't be doing that again. It's better just to have metal on metal contact, because what will happen is the vibrations will just eat through the rubber, and then you've got a loose fitting engine mount anyway. So things I still need to address. Obviously the nut there. Now I should have the spring for the hub gears in the bag somewhere, but I'll find that another day. This is the chain tensioner I put on when I first started having chain issues with this bike. It's just stretched, the chain's stretched. So my upcoming projects will be to get this this sprocket off and replace it with the one that came in the kit, because, well, they come with the widened crank pedals for a reason. They do not fit. As it is, that pedal barely cleared the two-stroke engine, and now it's got the big four-stroke transmission to clear as well. So this shouldn't be a terribly difficult build from here on out, because there's not that much I actually have to do in order to get it running. Fuel system's done. I don't have to worry about a clutch cable anymore. I should just have to size it up and see how we go. But seeing as we are running out of daylight, I'm going to finish it up for now. and then we'll see how we go next time.